This is a UC San Diego Blinkcast.
Moment for the camera to start. Oh, I'd also ask you to hold your questions to the end so that you get the whole package here, because you might get your questions answered as we go along.
Thank you so much for having us here today. Sydney, Tony, and I are all members of the California Care Planning Council, so I'm just going to start by telling you a little bit about us. We are a council. There's a national, state, and local council. Our council is the North County of San Diego chapter, and we are eldercare professionals and specialists advisors from different specialties. If you go to our website, which is careforsandiego.net, you can learn some more about who we are and our areas of expertise. Our goal is to come and do public speaking such as this to educate the people about what kind of resources are out there for you and your loved ones when the need arises, and how to prepare for aging gracefully with dignity and having the things that you need in place. So I am a geriatric care manager, registered nurse by training for over 20 years. You'll find that most geriatric care managers are either social workers or nurses, either master's prepared or bachelor prepared. I started my career in the military. I was an Army nurse in the Army Nurse Corps. Did a lot of work in hospitals, working in the intensive care unit, as well as emergency rooms, and then transitioned to geriatric research, doing clinical trials for Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and dementia, and then some behavioral health research at Sharp Mesa Vista, and then for the last 5 years as a geriatric care manager. So I run my own business, and my job is going to see seniors in their homes, do assessments, and come up with a care plan for them to ensure that they can be safe and independent at home for as long as possible. The need for elder care can happen suddenly, or it can come on slowly as people age. Either way, it's usually family and friends that find themselves trying to help to provide for the daily needs and monitoring that comes with caring for an elderly person. Can you all hear me okay? Okay. I'll tell you some statistics, some of which are a little bit scary. 60% of us will need elder care at some point in time. 1 in 3 employees are caregivers, and 85% of those are female. The average caregiver age is 46. And 20% of all caregivers go from full-time work to part-time employment when they take on a caregiver role. And 25% of caregivers report that they could use some help talking with physicians. And typically caregivers don't even, they realize they're not qualified to do some of the skills that are needed, nor do they know what kind of help is needed and where to get it. They might not know what's out there. So that's where a geriatric care manager can help. Many seniors fail to plan for elder care. They'll think, well, I'm going to die before I have to worry about any of that. I'm just going to have a heart attack in my sleep and I won't have to deal with that. Well, unfortunately, that doesn't always happen, or fortunately. But 69% have not done any planning or little planning, and another 20% mistakenly think the government is going to take care of them. In most cases, conflict can become a problem and an instant issue for families, conflict with work schedules, siblings deciding who's going to be in charge, who's going to be the person to advocate for the elder person, or if they're all going to share in that role, because not everyone always has the same opinion either about what's going to be best. So I'm going to switch from the slides for a moment and tell you a little bit about a friend of mine named Betty to help try to illustrate what care managers can do. My friend Betty's mom was 86 and she had a stroke, and that created a whole bunch of changes in her living situation. Instead of living in a home, Betty wanted to move her mom to live with her and really provide her with the best possible hands-on care. So even before that could happen, she had to look at a lot of different steps. Getting her moved, how to get all her belongings down there. And then even though she was power of attorney and had the authority to make decisions, every bank and every institution wanted their own power of attorney form filled out. So she couldn't even call banks or insurance companies and get information she needed and get accounts switched over without going through a whole process. It was time consuming. Plus, she was working full time trying to do all of this. She also had to do home modifications to make sure her home was going to be safe for her mom to live there, because she wasn't as strong as she used to be. She was real prone to having falls. And she had some language difficulty after the stroke, some thinking problems, and some beginning of dementia. So leaving her alone was quite scary, and not something that Betty wanted to do very often, if at all, worrying about her mom falling, why she might not be there. She needed help, and Betty thought she could handle all of this, you know. But the thing is, she wanted to do it really well because this is her mom and she wanted the best for her, but she'd never really gone through this process before. It's something that I do all the time, so I know the right people to call. Geriatric care managers have at their fingertips the right resources, and they can accomplish sometimes in just a few hours or days what might take a loved one weeks to do because they don't know where to turn. There's kind of a steep learning curve when it comes to doing these assessments and planning and making changes for someone, for instance, like Betty's mom who'd had a stroke. And in her experience, she learned that, oh, what if I forget something? What if I don't do it right? And the doctor said this, but I don't really understand what they meant by that, and I didn't know the right questions to ask to make sure that she gets the home care she needs, physical therapy or even caregivers. She was trying to do it all. And ultimately, the best way for her to have the best quality of life for herself and her mom was to get a caregiver to help. And that's something care managers can also help you do, is find caregivers and help educate caregivers, train them. These are people who come in the home and do non-medical care. They help with housekeeping, fixing meals, going shopping, transportation, and the care of bathing and dressing, etc. They can't do medical things unless they're private caregivers, which is a different matter. But typically, they're non-medical home care providers. And she found that her burnout that she was experiencing, caregiver burnout, you may have heard of that, really got a lot better when she did allow for some help to come in. She was having a lot of feelings of overwhelmed, feeling guilty, not sleeping, eating too much, not having time to exercise, self-loathing, depression, all of these things, and it was just really depressing. So she really could sigh a sigh of relief. She could breathe a sigh of relief when she had a caregiver who was there and hung out with her mom and played cards and made dinner with her and made her laugh, and they did coloring books, and Betty could go to work and know that her mom was taken care of. So maybe like Betty, you may want to hire professional caregivers. Well, there's over 200 caregiver agencies in San Diego. Which one are you going to call? They're not all equal, and how do you choose which is the best one, or which is the best one for your needs? Sometimes clients maybe who've had a stroke are not doing well, and they have some other cardiac issues. They might be looking at a terminal illness and need hospice care. Which hospice do you call? And that's something you're going to learn more next time, I understand. But that is something that we can help you set up as well. Some situations it may be appropriate to stay at home and live with family. Other times, looking at the big picture, as a care manager, I come in and do an assessment and look at finances and what's practical and what's not, and we might refer them to someone like Sydney to help look at other senior living options. So let me just see what we have up here. Your healthcare angel. We're your geriatric care management specialist, so that's how we can help with these and other issues. We help individuals who are seeking an objective opinion about or an accurate evaluation of their care options and associated costs. We help families that are in conflict over parents' care by being the professional objective to say, no, this is our professional recommendation, so that they're not so much squabbling going on and you know, well, this is what we recommend. We help children and families who live hundreds of miles away. I have a few clients who have dementia and there's nobody here for them. And I'm the person who coordinates everything and communicates with the family back in Montana or New York to make sure their loved ones are being cared for. So we provide education, advocacy, and counseling. A lot of times you might find that you want to look into a care manager specialist to help you out if you're limited in 2 to 3 activities of daily living, people who are having some mental or cognitive impairment, or if you just want an objective opinion and an accurate evaluation about what your options are and how much different things are going to cost. We can come in and do an assessment. We don't have to stay and do the weekly visits and medication management if you don't need that. But that is something we typically do offer, as well as we're available 24/7. So if there's an emergency in the middle of the night, the caregiver or a family member can call us and we can help decide, is this something that we need to address right now and go to the emergency room, or should I come over and assess, or can this wait till the morning? Part of our assessments, part of our services are doing an assessment, crisis intervention, arranging for in-home help, getting other resources and other professionals involved, because we might see things that once I say it, oh yeah, that of course that makes sense, but you might not think of it until I mention something. We help set up moving and changing different levels of care or different living situations, counseling and support, advocacy, and education, and fiduciary and court supervision. We can do a one-time planning consultation or ongoing. And we look at the big picture. We look at health concerns, functional status, cognition, the physical layout of the home, any safety issues, emotional supports, social supports, financial and legal resources for the elder client. And then we recommend the best services and help implement that if that's what you'd like. Long distance, like I said, a lot of phone calls and emails to family that live not locally, but do want to be sure that their loved ones are getting what they need. Some of the bad news about care management I'm going to let you know about is, even though we are offered in a variety of settings and we can provide all these personalized service, we're not free. So we are typically private pay. We are not typically covered by long-term care insurance policies, but that may be changing in time. But if you look at what it costs to have care in the home and dealing with crises that come up that you couldn't plan for because you didn't know, and then someone going in the hospital or having to go to a nursing home, we try to prevent those kind of things, so that ends up costing you money too. And we can navigate the resources efficiently and prevent costly crises. That's our goal. And we possess the years of training and expertise to get the job done, because time is money. So not everyone may need a geriatric care manager, but if you do, we are lifesavers. If you have a loved one, a friend, an elderly person, or that doesn't have family living nearby, or their kids may not live locally and be capable of helping them, you might want to think of a geriatric care manager. Ultimately, we take the stress out of your life and help you be able to enjoy your quality time with your loved ones and have fun and not worry about all the medical and health, social safety issues. We're available 24/7, and we give you peace of mind. And that's just, I think, priceless. So thank you so much. I'm going to now turn the screen over to Sydney. Oops.
You're so clever.
Yeah, well,
Sydney, just let me know.
Okay, thanks.
It takes two of us.
I should do it, I guess. This way.
I'm going to also ask you to guess a little bit. Let me know when I can start. Well, I am Sydney Kennedy. I'm an Eldercare advisor, a certified senior advisor, and I'm an expert in senior housing and services, and it's a real pleasure for me to be here. A long time ago, I did work for the university, so I have an affinity for everybody here. Today, I'm going to talk about senior living and care options. There are many options that are out there. I think one of the most important things for families to do is inform yourself, have the education so that you can build a plan, not waiting for a crisis. So these are all the options that exist in senior housing and services. And I'm principally going to talk about the areas in red, but let me touch on senior apartments, Senior apartments are just like any apartment that anybody would rent, except they're a little bit lower because they're age restricted, 55 or 62 and over. A lot of people are going for those right now. But there are no organized activities, no meals, no nothing. It's just like any apartment that anybody would rent. When we look at home care, that's generally because people are wanting to keep their loved ones at home, as Anne had mentioned. And there the focus is not only on the safety and care of the resident, the patient, but it's also on the caregiver. So a couple of things that we will typically talk about with families is the option of adult daycare, especially if you're dealing with dementia. It's a wonderful option for giving the caregiver a little bit of free time to themselves, but it's also fabulous for the patients. It keeps them occupied, it keeps them stimulated, it allows them a little bit of social interaction, and sometimes it's paid for by the government, sometimes it's private pay. Senior centers for people who are mentally alert are also great options. And then the other option is respite care. And respite really is a term that means short-term care. So that would be actually relocating your patient, your loved one, in a facility, a community, where they would look after them while you have a medical treatment yourself, or you attend something out of town, or if you just need a break. We see this happen a lot with seniors. One senior is looking after another senior. It also has a benefit, a secondary benefit, of giving the family the opportunity to see how that loved one manages in another setting, where somebody else is looking after them 24/7, and you're just going to love them. That's a really big benefit to help families make that transition and not feel so guilty because they've had that experience. So if this is all sounding like Greek for you, what you need is a placement specialist. And we listen to your situation. We will educate you on how the system works so that you can build a plan that's going to work for you. We will guide you according to the care needs that you have, the budget that you have, the geographic needs, and provide you with many other resources that are simpatico, if you will, with the whole challenge of caregiving, and we'll follow through right until a decision is made, and often I follow up even after a decision has been made. And in the case of placement specialists, what's the cost? It's free. And the reason it's free is because we're reimbursed with everybody we work with. So we're a for-profit company. So let's talk about retirement living options. You see the cruise ship and the gambling and whatnot. There are lots of people, thanks Anne, who refer to retirement living, independent living, as living on a ship and dry dock. Because when you're looking at what we call independent living, you're looking at a community where you have a room or you share a room, you have your own stuff, you have a kitchenette, you have 1 to 3 meals given to you daily, tons of activities. A lot of seniors will consider this option, especially if they're widows or widowers and they're lonely. If they just want to be active and live in another community, if they're not driving anymore, if they don't want to cook, etc., etc. It's a wonderful way to live, very social. It's good for people who want to be social. Lots of clubs, lots of activities. And typically, the price of that is about $1,800 to $3,000 a month. And then I'll just briefly touch on in-home care. This is, again, non-medical. So this is, I call it hire a daughter. You know, where you're really doing light housekeeping, linen change, laundry, doing meals, running errands, helping them with bathing and showering, dressing, incontinence care sometimes. And if you hire an outside caregiver, it's about $18 to $23 on average an hour. And in your handouts is an outline about hiring a private caregiver and what some of the pitfalls are in doing that versus an agency. So then we'll go on to assisted living, and this is when you do actually need care and you're not staying at home. And I like to broadly categorize assisted living in two ways according to their business models. First of all, let me say that these are licensed facilities. So they're licensed by the state of California. They're subject to all the same inspections, rules and regulations, and we know about those rules and regulations. The first type is the large community, much like the independent living that I just talked to you about, except that they have caregivers. Their business model is unique in that they will charge you for a room, the room that you choose in the community, and then they assess and charge care charges. So for financial planning, you're looking at a model that is going to get higher and higher and higher as your level of care goes up. The other type of licensed assisted living community is the small board and cares, residential care homes. And I'll be touching on those, but the business model for those is generally all-inclusive pricing because these are small business owners. They convert a house and they really have empathy and a love for caring for seniors, and they just want to, pay their mortgage and cover their costs and the staff, et cetera, et cetera. So it's likely that if you move into a board and care at a certain amount of money, you will always pay that amount of money because they don't want to lose you as a resident. So it's better for financial planning. So let's talk now about the large assisted living communities. Very often we see blended communities, what I call blended communities, where you would go in as an independent senior, and then as you age, you go into assisted living and get the care that you need. Sometimes you have to physically move on campus, sometimes you don't. The nice thing about that is that you have all your friends still, but you're getting that level of care that you need with bathing and showering, toileting, dressing, whatever your needs are as you age. Typically, they don't have a kitchenette. You get 3 meals a day. Again, that can be a very social experience, just going for meals. But they do have activities as well. And typically, those cost now about $2,500 to $4,500. I mean, you can pay more than that for some of the more posh places where they have higher land value, but generally, that's about the cost that you pay. A type of assisted living community is also memory care. And this is for people who need to have 24-hour care because they have a diagnosis of dementia. There's 140 different types of dementia. But what it means is that they need specialized care. The caregivers are experienced in diffusing behavior. They're experienced in understanding that you can't really understand somebody with dementia most of the time. These communities are secured. So if somebody all of a sudden decides to exit SEEK, it's not a problem. But they're not caged. Oftentimes they have a lot of open area where they can ramble around. Also, they have awake caregivers at night. So if your loved one is going through a stage where they like to get up at night, it's not a problem. They will get them involved in activities, whatever the patient needs to live in the best possible, kindest way is what they provide. Sometimes we have freestanding memory care communities, and sometimes we have memory care units that are part of an assisted living community. And we fortunately have a lot of options in San Diego. Those are the big places, and they're typically, $2,500 if you're lucky, but more like $4,500 to $7,000 a month. And then let's look at the residential care homes. And I switched to that now in this order because your small board and cares also will take dementia. I love my board and cares. I know that sometimes the media gets on them and they tell us awful stories, but I love my board and cares. The ones that I work with really love seniors, and they provide a wonderful service to seniors. Not only is it all-inclusive pricing so that you can budget based on what their income is, but they will take residents that go on hospice. They want to keep that resident until the very end. They will take somebody with dementia. They will take the bedridden in some cases. And I know which places will take the higher levels of care and will keep them right to the end. So Sometimes they'll do transportation to doctors, but it's really an excellent opportunity for non-social seniors, but also for seniors that are more frail, because they do get that one-on-one care. The really critical thing is that they have 2 caregivers for every 6 residents. And I know the ones that have awake staff at night when a new resident needs that, or when a patient needs that. So they anticipate the needs of their residents. It's really a good option. I have them for as little as $1,300 to $1,500, but you have to be pretty independent for that, right up to $10,000 in La Jolla. So it really depends on the geographic location and what level of care and how kind of posh they are. But they're still licensed and they're still subject to the same inspections as all the big places. So now, why do you need help from me? I think I've sort of touched on that. It's because I know what level of care people provide. You know, do they have assisted living as well as independent? Do they take wheelchairs and scooters, insulin injections? You know, it's according to the state law, most assisted living communities are not able to do insulin injections, but there are some that have nurses on staff, and I know which ones those are. You know, again, the transferability. Some of them have Hoyer lifts, which will fully transfer somebody. So there's a lot of detail, except pets. I sure know the ones that accept pets, believe me. So there's a lot of detail that I can tell you about in order to cherry pick communities that are going to be appropriate for you, so you're not wasting your time looking at things that are not appropriate. When do I need a nursing home? Well, you know, that's why they've invented assisted living communities. Most people will never need a nursing home. A nursing home is for people who have tracheas, feeding tubes, beyond stage 2, open wounds, IV. Most places will now take catheters. As I said, some of them will do insulin, brittle diabetics, fully bedridden. The only other time you need a nursing home is if you're completely indigent or cannot afford assisted living. And Tony will be touching on that. And this is where we get to who pays for what. And basically everything is private pay in Southern California. I mean, that's the brutal truth. However, some people have bought long-term care insurance. And more of my families are using long-term care insurance. And that's really very handy. If you don't have it, look into it. The younger you are, the cheaper it is. And that covers all types, everything that I've talked about today, including home care in most cases, plus, of course, private pay. The Veterans Administration has a wonderful program that Tony's going to talk about that gives extra money in certain situations. And I want to just clarify, this is something that I'm asked all the time. People say, well, doesn't Medicare pay for any of this? Doesn't Medi-Cal pay for any of this? Medicare is only health insurance. It's for hospitals, doctors, medications, rehab, like short-term stays in a nursing home. And Medi-Cal is the long-term care insurance, if you will, where the government pays for you to be in a nursing home. And they also, today, still are paying for adult daycare in some cases. So don't be confused by Medicare and Medi-Cal. So I just want to end by saying it's not all as bad as everybody makes it out to be. There is a lot of good goodness and good things and good times that go on in these retirement communities. It's just a question of being prepared and having a plan in place. So I'm going to pass it on now to Tony.
Do you want me to stand any place in particular?
You have a tie, so you.
Can I stand up here? Is it okay if I come up here? Okay. No, I'm okay. Good afternoon. My name is Tony Bevin. My company is Financial Security Designs. I'm located in Rancho Bernardo. I think it's great that you're all out here spending your lunchtime trying to educate yourself on all these different programs that are available. What I'm going to give you some basic information on VA benefits and Medi-Cal, what I like to call myths. As far as the VA benefit is concerned, well, are there any veterans in the room? Veteran spouses? Okay. Have you ever heard of the Aid and Attendance Program? No. Most haven't. What that program is designed for is if there is a need for home health care or assisted living. They'll also pay for skilled, but the reason why you would want to really look into this is because they'll pay for unreimbursed medical expenses. So a lot of times veterans are at home, they just need some assistance with home health care. Well, they'll pay, depending on what your scenario is, for that care. And again, it's available for surviving spouses also. You have to meet service requirements. That's basically have been in the military for 90 days, serve 1 day during wartime. You didn't have to actually be fighting, but just be serving 1 day during wartime and get an honorable discharge. In some cases, though, you don't actually have to have an honorable if you serve. If you got a dishonorable, but you served honorably, and that didn't affect the reason why you got the dishonorable, it can be changed. But the disability requirements basically are going to be that you have a need for care that is costing more than your income in order to get your full benefit. So what that means in essence is if your expenses are more than what your income is by 5%, you will be entitled to the entire amount that the VA Aid and Attendance program will provide. You have to meet income and asset limitations. So if you do have a lot of money, for instance, a home is exempt, but that's if you're living in it. But if you're in assisted living, they want to count the asset. So if you have a lot of equity in it, they're probably going to come back and say you have too much in the way of assets, so you need to use that money to pay for your own level of care. But that actually can be protected. Now, I'm not an attorney. I do not practice law. But what you'd be doing is repositioning these assets in a trust. It has to be a certain trust. Most of the existing trusts don't work. And I would be able to talk to you further about that and refer you to an attorney that does specialize in the trusts that work for VA benefits. Thanks, Ann. These are the amounts that are available. If there's a veteran at home with one dependent, that's going to be for a assisted living facility. They'll pay up to $2,019. And you can pretty much read what they're going to pay. If they're at home with one dependent, it's $1,500. The surviving spouse of a veteran can get $808. Okay? Again, they're going to have to meet an asset and income test. So if their income, let's say, is $1,000 a month, and then the surviving spouse care, at $20 an hour, it's 50 hours, it's not going to be real hard to go over what her income is as far as medical expenses are concerned. But if the income's $4,000, well, if they have a need for 24-hour days, 7-day a week care, well, it's probably going to be over $5,000, easy. So they would be entitled to the full benefit. If their income was a little bit higher than the benefit, what they do, they kind of prorate it. So you could still get some income even if the expenses are not over what your total income is. A little bit further, on the VA benefits, that's okay, you don't need to change it. The Veterans Service organizations are going to tell you what you need to do in order to get the benefits. There's a lot of people out there that are telling people how to get these benefits by putting their money into annuities. I'm not one of them. And the reason I say that is because if you have a few $100,000, whatever the amount is, they'll say, okay, well, in order to get the full benefit, you need to have 5% more in expenses than what your income is. So what they do is they say, okay, well, how much money could I put into this single premium immediate annuity to get their income up to where it's just below that amount, so they'll be entitled to the total benefit. Well, that's great, that works, but what you've done is put the money into a single premium immediate annuity that's going to pay for X amount of years. And if the need arose for a higher level of care, like a skilled nursing facility, in essence what you've done is reposition this money in such a way that will make them ineligible for Medi-Cal. And if the annuity was a deferred annuity, you'd have to surrender it. There's going to be surrender charges. They don't charge for that. They don't charge you to do the VA application, but what they're doing is they're making a ton of money off the commissions. And I'm not saying I don't do them. If there's a place for it, I will, but not all the time. So what I recommend people do is work with an attorney that does the specific trusts that work for not only veterans benefit planning, but also Medi-Cal planning down the road. Because even though the VA does not have a look-back period, in other words, you could transfer all your assets today and be eligible for VA benefits tomorrow. Doesn't work that way with Medi-Cal. Medi-Cal has a look-back period. Right now it's 30 months. California is the only state that I'm aware of that has not adopted the Deficit Reduction Act, which is going to make the look-back period 5 years, and the whole planning for repositioning assets is going to change dramatically. Whereas today we might be able to protect $500,000. When the act is implemented, it would be half that. So going on to Medi-Cal, Medi-Cal will attach my assets. Well, absolutely. If whatever is in the Medi-Cal beneficiary's name at the time that they pass away, they're coming after. If there's a well spouse at home, they wait until after that well spouse at home has passed on, and then they're coming after. It's usually the home, because the home is exempt in order to get eligibility for Medi-Cal. But again, they're going to come after it. But it's easy to preserve it by just repositioning it in one of these trusts. Actually, it doesn't even have to be in a trust, but I'm not going to give you legal advice. Medi-Cal eligibility, no Medi-Cal eligibility if assets are transferred. Now, that's not true. What they do is they impose a period of ineligibility for Medi-Cal, and that's based on the dollar amount of the transfer and the date of the transfer. Most publications you will have read will state if you've transferred any assets in the past 3 years, you will be ineligible for Medi-Cal. I'll tell you what it should say, and then I'll tell you what it means in plain English. It should say if you've transferred any assets in the past 30 months, you will be ineligible for Medi-Cal if you apply prior to the period of ineligibility expiring. That means that they want to know about the assets that were transferred. They're going to impose a period of ineligibility on that transfer. If it was for $6,000, there's a 0 period of ineligibility. If you did for $12,000, it's going to be 2 months of ineligibility. So it's got to be done a certain way for it to work and be legal. It all has to be disclosed. You can't hide. That's non-disclosure, and that's bad. So you can get Medi-Cal eligibility by repositioning the assets a certain way. It has to be done so there's a complete paper trail in order for it to work and get eligibility. Property is protected in a living trust. It can be, but not necessarily. Because if it's a joint trust, again, I'm not an attorney, I don't practice law, but anything that's in that Medi-Cal beneficiary's name at the time of their passing, that's going to have California State Recovery is going to come after once both spouses have passed away. The income is too high? Not true. Clients with income pushing $10,000, over $10,000 a month for the well spouse at home. They call it the name on the check rule. If the money's coming into the well spouse at home, whatever the income is for the institutionalized spouse is what goes towards paying for their care at the nursing home. And I should purchase an annuity. It depends. If there's a well spouse at home and she has too much assets, then yeah, you can put the money into the annuity. It just builds her income up, and again, it could be $10,000, $15,000, doesn't matter. But if the spouse at home isn't well, you don't want to do an annuity, because then it's probably just a matter of time before that person might need care, and now you've locked this money up into an annuity, and all the income from that is going to go towards the share of costs. That's what you would have to pay the nursing home. And then when that person passes away, well, in order for that annuity to work anyway, the state has to be the primary beneficiary on that annuity. So they'll recoup everything they paid that was on behalf of that Medi-Cal beneficiary. Now, this is the way that it's being sold, again, not by me, but it is being sold this way. Well, you've got $100,000, you could be paying the average private pay rate of $6,840 a month, or we'll put it into the single premium immediate annuity, and it'll be for that person's life expectancy. And then should they still be around after that, you don't get anything. Should they pass away prior to that annuity term expiring, the money goes to the state, but only at the Medi-Cal rate, not the private pay rate. So private pay is more expensive than the Medi-Cal rate. So that's how you could possibly save money. They say this is how you can make your money last longer. But if you deal with the right people that understand the gifting process, then you can preserve the majority of the assets. Now I'm going to tell you how it works, and you can make your own moral decision on how you want to approach it. There's people that come to this country every day that have never paid a nickel in taxes. They're getting these benefits. If I had a World War II veteran, actually he fought in 2 wars, he raised 2 adopted kids, lived very comfortably. He didn't spend his money. He had about $800,000 too much money. Drove in a nice little car, nice little home. Well, when I got done with him, his income was about $15,000 a month, and he's paying about $236 a month for his wife's care. Well, I've done presentations where an attorney actually said, that's immoral. Well, she's now doing what I do. I'm just not going to mention any names. But because this person could afford to pay for the care. Well, that's very true. This person could. But he was a pilot. He was healthy. He was going to be around a long time. And why should he spend all his money just because he was told just because he didn't blow it, he can't have these benefits? So if it's morally, it doesn't work for you, that's totally up to you. But if you want to learn how to protect assets, that's what we do. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michelle, and I'm the counselor at the Faculty and Staff Assistance Program, and I'm also I'm also the Eldercare Specialist for the faculty and staff. And I just wanted to let you know about the resources that we have available here on campus for those of you who are working. And also it's open for the employees and also for the retired employees as well. We have an Eldercare program. It meets once a month on Thursdays. And it's from noon to 1. It's the first Thursday of every month. It's a support group. And every other month, we usually have guest speakers from the community that will come and talk to the group about different resources available in the community. It's free, you bring your lunch, and it's a wonderful support because there's people in the group that have just started the adventure of dealing with caregiving, and there's also those that are at the other end or late stage of life caregiving. So there's all kind of support for each other. Additionally, this support group is on campus. It's usually you have to call us or you get on the mailing list, and I can let you know because they kind of move us around on campus finding a room. Usually it's here in the Price Center in one of the rooms. Now, for those of you that work in Torrey Pines South or Torrey Pines North, or it's more convenient for you to get over to there, the first Tuesdays of the month, we're going to have a support group over there as well. So there'll be one on Tuesdays and one on Thursdays, each the first Tuesday and the first Thursday. And at that one also, we're going to have guest speakers, and we're going to have round table, and it's free. It's free. The other thing I wanted to let you know that the Office of the President has provided a benefit for all the UCs, and it's a benefit that's called Sitter City. And what it is if you need resources quickly for elder care, for pet sitters, for babysitters, you can go to this website, and it's across the nation, and you could look and see if this is something that you can use. But I want to give some time to the panel for question and answer.
I have a question. How do you blend if someone's made a decision to do reverse mortgages, how do you blend that into the entire picture?
I have something I can say about that, but Tony may also want to address that. It's very difficult. It's really difficult because as you know, with a reverse mortgage, you're making a commitment to the individual staying at home. And then if the individual leaves home, then supposedly you're supposed to pay that back. And again, we all have resources for people that deal with reverse mortgages. You get that information, you can discuss that with any of us. But yeah, it could be a big pitfall. Do you have anything to add?
Well, as far as for purposes of VA benefits or Medi-Cal, if the person's not living in the home, for VA benefits, it's going to be counted as an asset. So for Medi-Cal, it's exempt. But if the person's not living there, I think you might want to just go ahead and they don't have any intent to return home, go ahead and sell the home, and then you can reposition the property and keep eligibility or get eligibility, whatever the case may be.
Can you transfer the pause? Can you transfer the property to the immediate son or daughter?
You know, that's a reverse mortgage broker question.
Are there any other questions? One more thing I wanted to let you know is I provide one-on-one counseling. Sometimes it's not convenient to get to the support groups, but you do want to find out about resources or what should I do next. You're more than welcome to come to the office, yourself, family members, siblings, to help find out what's available to you. And I can refer you to other community services as well as how to help you balance both work and caregiving. So I can help with that. Any other questions?
We have brochures here too if you're interested. Sorry, we have some more brochures and handouts up here if you're interested in any more information or if you want to talk to any of us individually afterwards as well.
Thank you, everybody.
This has been a UC San Diego Blinkcast. For more, visit us online at blinkcast.ucsd.edu.